Everyone has issues with procrastination. There is always this one thing which you want to do, which you can't get yourself to do. There is a nagging feeling in everyone which constantly reminds you that there are things you could have done which you haven't and which you should. This is procrastination, putting off things for later. And it's a tendency. And there are ways, thankfully now, that can tell us insights from psychology, from neuroscience, which have something to say about this and give you a deeper understanding of how to beat this tendency. The first thing and the key word here is tendency. And when I say that, I mean that the brain itself, it's an energy conserver. It does not like to spend too much energy. And in order to do something difficult, you require energy, you require psychic energy, you require mental energy. You have to get yourself to do it. You have to muster up the intention to execute a task. And that's not always easy because there are always opposing forces stopping you from doing this or telling you to do something else or diverting your energy in something else or the other. Like I mentioned, this is a tendency. And the first thing to take away from that is that tendencies are not your fault. Tendencies are naturally ingrained and it's a function of the way the brain works. And that means, that translates into an important takeaway here, which I must emphasize. And that takeaway is that you do not want to blunt force willpower onto the problem. If you have an issue with procrastination, people have different degrees of problems with it. Some people have more of an issue and some people don't. If you have the issue to any degree, the first thing to do is do not try to blunt force your way through it. Do not try to think that your willpower, whatever that might be, is enough to steamroll you and that you lack willpower. The thing about willpower, and this is something again which psychology and neuroscience is revealing based on a lot of research, is that it seems to function like a currency. So if you have something which is a currency and it is not entirely dependent on you, then the currency depletes as you take harder and harder decisions, as you step into traffic, as you go through your day and things require attention. Your energy is diverted. The willpower gets depleted. So by the end of the day, when you arrive at that point or that stage when you think that you will do something after coming home from work or from college or whatever, and you think that you will prepare for this examination and you have a to-do list and you find that you simply don't have the energy, and that's because your willpower is depleted. There are ways to replenish it, which I would like to tell you about in a very brief, non-scientific type of way. And there are certain principles which can be used, which have proven to be very effective in this. The first insight, again, also comes from psychology, and it's goal-setting theory. Goal-setting theory is an intuitive theory, but it has been researched and the insights are clear. You are inclined to accomplish tasks which are very, very simple and clear-cut. If you have an overarching goal, a very big goal, you will clear the UPSC exam, or if your goal is to lose 15 kilos of weight, these are very long-term big goals. They don't work to motivate you. They may in fact work to overwhelm you. In fact, to the point that you don't want to do it because it's simply too hard. The only way to get yourself to do it is to set a path for yourself, is to break that larger goal into very small, minute, clear-cut goals, which can be executed on a day-to-day basis. Unless it is broken down into those tiny parts, into those subtasks, the subtasks may have their own subtasks, it will be too overwhelming, and procrastination is usually at many times, the tendency to avoid that large overarching goal because it is simply too scary. The goal setting theory works by defining the goals, making them very short, but making them challenging. So it shouldn't be too easy or you won't feel the motivation at all. It can be too hard or you won't feel the challenge to do it, you won't feel the excitement. It has to be in the middle. And as you try to break things into pieces, tasks into pieces, you realize there is a way to do this and you get better at it as time goes by. So use that insight. The other thing that will be useful is to do the hardest thing first. Things which are the hardest tasks, the tasks which you find are challenging, which will require more of your resources, your willpower, your motivation, your intelligence, your cognitive resources, whatever they may be, are better scheduled in the first half of the day. As you get up, that's when the body is primed and the mind is also primed to execute that. And if you are able to do the hardest task first, if you are able to use this principle, it also has this positive spin-off effect of making you want to do other tasks, and it puts you on this trajectory where you start to do the tasks and you get better at it because you start to get dopamine out of that experience. And dopamine is the reward chemical in your brain. It's a neurotransmitter, and it makes you feel good. It makes you feel good about any achievement that you've done. So do the hardest task first, and this is not uncommon. You may have heard this. In fact, army personnel use it all the time, and they have this principle that if you get up in the morning and if you make your bed, and if it's immaculate, then the rest of your day is going to flow and you will have control. It's another important impact of the insights of psychology, which suggests that you are likely to follow through on things which you can control to some degree. So this degree of control, we don't experience a lot of control in our lives. Sometimes we do. It's important for people to create a sense of control, where the world is completely dynamic, forever changing. So the simple act of making your bed creates that sense of control, that pushes your locus of control, your sense of independence, of autonomy, is that you can control the environment, that you can control the task, becomes internalized. You become more prone to doing things, you become more prone to facing challenges which appear in the day, you become less prone to procrastination as a result. That is the fundamental idea. The third insight is habit formation, and habit formation is, of course, it's a large topic on its own, but the summary and the crux of it is that you will probably find something easier to do if it becomes a habit. If you get used to it, you normally will get used to something if you do it 5 days in a row. 5 to 7 days is the minimum. As you do more and more of it, it creates a force, and there's something called cognitive dissonance comes into play. And it suggests that since you've now done 6 or 7 days of that, and now you have a streak going. You may have seen this principle of streak is being used in many applications, and it's an element of gamification. 5-day streaks, 7-day streaks, and so on. Once you have a streak going, you don't want to break it. That's because we like patterns, we like continuity. And that's also the reason you don't want to do hard things, because it breaks the continuity, it breaks the laziness, it breaks the lethargy, it breaks the comfort, but that's not healthy. So if you can get yourself to do the tasks which are small, and if you can do the small tasks only 5 to 7 days in a row, you're very likely to continue, and just tendency, like I mentioned, will start to switch, and it starts to switch inwards, and you find that you're becoming more productive. Now, obviously, you will have pitfalls and you will falter along the way. The idea is to get back up, use the principles again, and then continue on the path. The other thing, and I suppose the most important thing which gets ignored in this conversation, which is about psychology, is the body. The body cannot be ignored. It's fundamental. It is the basis on which all the psychology occurs. And when I say body, I am talking particularly about blood glucose levels. And blood glucose levels, they fluctuate during the day. They fluctuate depending on your health condition. They fluctuate depending on your sensitivity to insulin, but let's not get too scientific or technical. The idea is the type of food you eat determines the level of glucose in your body. If you eat simple carbohydrates, if you eat sugars, if you drink soft drinks, they're going to cause a spike in the blood glucose. You'll feel good for a while, but it then will lead to a crash and you feel horrible and you don't feel like doing anything after that. So you want to eat things, you want to consume foods which give you a stable blood glucose level. The more stable it remains, the better your chances of continuing on the road without procrastination. So that's something to keep in mind. And that also, by default, if you start to go deeper into this idea of maintaining blood glucose, you will find that the foods which maintain good glucose levels are the foods which are healthy. And so it's going to lead to this circular spin-off effect and this cycle of positivity. You eat healthy, you feel steady, you feel less tempted to break off, you feel healthier, the blood glucose remains maintained, you get dopamine, it goes on and on and on, and hopefully the lifestyle changes and it leads to permanent long-term changes. That's the whole part. The most important part, in fact, is whatever changes you institute should lead to long-term lifestyle changes if you want to achieve any of these long-term goals, right? They are not short goals which will fit into this 1-2 week worth of effort, and so that's why you require these types of strategies. The final takeaways: what should you do, what can you do? Are there certain principles which you can deploy? And it's a repetition of what I said, but I'll put it in a summary for you to assimilate. And these action points are that you should have clear goals, very clear-cut goals. Ideally, these should not be more than 3 in a day. 3 clear-cut goals in a day. That is the level to which you will have to break down that larger goal. Once that's done, you require some form of habit formation. You require some rewards during the day when you accomplish these. These give you the dopamine which is much needed, which leads to wanting more dopamine, which will come when you finish that second task, which leads to more dopamine when you reward yourself, which leads to the third task. And so reward yourself with dopamine. Dopamine comes with simple things, even eating a good meal, talking to a friend, but don't do enough. Don't do more than is required, and don't go on the dopamine roller coaster where all you seek is pleasure, because that's a danger which is inherent. But I'm sure that your common sense will stop you if that is happening. The fourth takeaway is that you might want to consider caffeine. If you are using caffeine, if you drink tea or if you drink coffee, then you are using caffeine. Caffeine is a drug, it's a stimulant. It will act on the neurotransmitters of the brain and it will give you energy. In fact, it will fool you into having energy. I personally do use it, and I don't think that it has a long-term impact if it is used responsibly. So you might want to time this caffeine because it's going to give you a surge in your energy levels. You want to time it, but don't allow it to disrupt your sleep. So do not intake caffeine 6 to 8 hours before your bedtime, because it's probably going to cause you problems with sleep. Don't use it only for taste. Use it at the time that you know you have to do something which is hard, which is challenging, to help you push through. And there's also this placebo effect which comes into play, which makes you believe that there is something in the caffeine where it's simply just energy, which you get. It's a small burst of energy. Anyway, those are some of the important takeaways, some principles which work. I hope you can adopt them and then structure your life and design it accordingly. I hope this helps you. I hope you achieve your goals. Thank you.